Now you'll tell me why Superman peanut butter tastes so great. Never. So fresh roasted, so creamy.
So a few days ago, I had the idea to write Superman Legacy, the upcoming 2025 film directed by James Gunn, set to kick off the DCU. But like most comic book fans, as I got into it, I got more and more ideas, specifically for how to write a trilogy, one that would define Superman for generations to come, as well as kick off the DCU. So today in this video, I'm going to break down each of the 3 films and give a basic summary of what I'd like to see and the overarching narrative of the trilogy for how to define Superman. But before we get into the video, I'd just like to say thank you so much for listening. If you would consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, or leaving us a comment on your thoughts, what you would like to see in a trilogy. Am I wrong? Am I crazy? On crack? Thank you so much. Let's get into it. So to start off, I have to say, I took a lot of inspiration from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. I just love the tone, the character development, and the way he was able to balance a grounded world as well as the fantastical elements of Spider-Man. That is absolutely the tone and vibe I'm going for in my Superman trilogy. In terms of casting, I'm just going to do Superman. Let us know in the comments who you would cast for Superman and the other characters. But I'm going to go with David Cornsweet. He's the right look, the right age, and I think he has the right range for what I'm looking for from Superman and Clark Kent. And I like the fact that he's a little lesser known, because that way it's a fresh portrayal, and hopefully he can do something a little unique with the character. Kicking off this trilogy, we have Superman Legacy, with a young Clark Kent just moved to Metropolis. It's similar to Matt Reeves' The Batman. This is very early in his superhero career, think year 1 or 2. Still figuring out the ropes, still trying to understand his powers, and still doesn't know he knows very little about his Kryptonian heritage. All he knows is he's not from this Earth, and he's not human. He feels like an outsider. He's struggling between his job at the Daily Planet, working with the expert reporter Lois Lane and his best friend Jimmy Olsen, as well as balancing that with his superhero life, starting out as Superman, trying to make an impact on the city. One major priority I'd have with this film is establishing Superman's awesome supporting cast of characters. That consists of Jonathan and Martha Kent. We have Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, Perry White, the people at the Daily Planet, all the people in Metropolis. I want Superman interacting with them and fleshing them out as characters. That way later on in the series, when they're in peril, it makes us actually care about it. So as the beginning of this film continues, we have Superman struggling to juggle all the aspects that come with being a hero as well as trying to be a normal guy. He feels like an outsider, and that's why he doesn't want to explore his Kryptonian side, because he wants to keep on to the part of humanity that he has. And we see that with his relationships with Lois and the other supporting cast. However, when he is Superman, and he is trying to save people, a lot of the times things don't always go his way. He's still figuring it out as a hero, and he's not perfect. Sometimes he might not be there on time, or he might cause extra public destruction, but there's always critics in the news who say he's not perfect. This is where Lex Luthor comes in. Lex is a billionaire tycoon, and he hasn't yet met Superman. So one night, he fakes an emergency for Superman to come and makes a proposal to him. He says, "Let me help you. I see what you're trying to do. I see you trying to help people, but you have a PR image problem. Let me assist you with my resources, my enterprises. We could work together and be a force for good." Clark hasn't met Lex at this point yet, so he doesn't know anything about him, and being the naive farm boy from Kansas, he believes him. He has no reason not to trust Lex. And as he agrees to work with Lex, his life actually does improve, as well as his ability to help people. He's able to get to scenes faster, he's able to react to things better, and working with Lex, he's able to build up his public image to become a true hero for Metropolis. And him and Lex are genuinely getting along as partners. You could almost call them friends. I really want to establish them early on in this series to make them almost like brothers in a sense, to which the betrayal at the end of this movie will only make it so much worse as the trilogy goes on and their hatred towards each other increases. Now for the villain of this film, we're going to go with Parasite, an antagonist who can drain the powers of metahumans while using them against them. Like, he could have Superman's heat vision, super strength, etc. I think this would be a unique challenge because Superman can't punch his way out of it while saving the bigger, badder intergalactic villains for the other movies in the trilogy. He would be a LexCorp employee, a janitor, an immigrant, much like Superman, an outsider who fell into a vat of chemicals. I think this is also make for a unique dynamic between the two as they compare their lives. At the halfway point of the film, we meet Martian Manhunter. I really love to see him on screen with Superman, as they're both the last of their species, and they have very different approaches to how to handle that. Whereas Martian Manhunter wants to focus on the preservation of the Martian race and doesn't want to interfere with humanity, Superman is the opposite, where he's not as interested with his Kryptonian heritage because he's so focused on saving people and being a hero. I would love to see them in their conflicting ideologies as they have great conversation and then change each other's perspectives throughout the film. I want Superman to care about the people of Metropolis, not just punch his way out of every problem. For example, this scene from a comic book where there's a man who feels misunderstood that's prepared to take his own life jumping off a building, and Superman stays floating up there waiting for him all day, just being a friend, someone that he can talk to. He waits up there all day regardless of his responsibilities in his personal life or professional life. I want this type of Superman who cares about the people of Metropolis, so we care about them. The climax of this film would be Lois Lane uncovering that Lex is manipulating Superman, who she tells to Clark after he reveals his alter ego identity as a superhero. Martian Manhunter and Superman go to arrest Lex, only for Parasite to attack Lex, and the two superheroes have to put aside their differences with the billionaire in order to protect him. This could be an awesome action sequence where Parasite absorbs their powers, using them against them and draining them, making them very weak. However, he also absorbed their weaknesses, that being kryptonite and fire, the weakness of Martian Manhunter. The two heroes use this knowledge to take down Parasite. With the ending of the film, Superman confronts Lex Luthor. They both explain that they truly wanted to save the world, however they have different methods of doing it, and Luthor, angrily at Superman's rejection, explains if he ever gets in his way again, he'll kill him. The last scene of the film is Superman finally being convinced by Martian Manhunter to explore his Kryptonian heritage, flies to the Fortress of Solitude, and we get a cliffhanger clue for our next villain. We're doing Brainiac, baby! Brainiac is the obvious choice for a villain for the sequel, and this film would work regardless of if they added the Justice League in between my first and second Superman films. And this movie basically writes itself, so I'm only going to go over the major plot details and keep it shorter than the first one. Superman has activated a homing beacon in the Fortress of Solitude when doing his training. It's been a few years since the events of Superman Legacy. Supergirl has heard the beacon and flies to Earth to seek more Kryptonians. They meet each other, and Supergirl says she needs Superman's help, as there is a being known as Brainiac who's destroying planets throughout the universe. Superman, of course, goes to help, being the superhero he is, and knowing that there are beings out there that need his help. They explore new planets, meet new people, and Supergirl is able to catch up Superman on everything Kryptonian, as she grew up on Krypton and remembers it vividly. Eventually, we meet Lobo, a bounty hunter from outer space, who is hired by Brainiac to capture Supergirl, although Superman and Supergirl are able to beat him in a fight and then force him to take them to Brainiac. The big twist in the film is that Brainiac didn't destroy Krypton, which we initially thought. Instead, he terraformed it to be his own giant supercomputer. There are so many different ways to take this story and still have it be incredibly successful as long as you have the right visuals and character motivation. The theme throughout the entire second film will be humanity, as Brainiac thinks Superman is weaker because he's embracing the human side of him rather than the Kryptonian. And Superman must choose to destroy the world he thought was once doomed in order to destroy Brainiac, as you can't kill him without killing the computer. While all of this is going on, there's a side plot where Lois and Jimmy Olsen have to stop and undermine Lex Luthor as he runs for mayor of Metropolis, only for Superman to return at the end of the film with Lex Luthor winning the election, becoming the mayor of Metropolis. Rather than making my third film bigger and grander than the previous, I want to make it more personal. Go back to the roots of Metropolis as we have Lex and Superman in their final showdown. All three films building up to this. In this film, Superman's going to learn that he can't save everyone, as in the opening scene, Jonathan Kent dies from a heart attack. This is also reinforced early on in the film when Superman fails to save a little girl from crime, incident, what so have you. Lex Luthor capitalizes on this to enact a new superhero task force called the Elite. For those of you that don't know, the Elite is a group of metahumans in the comic books and in some of the animated movies that would be considered more anti-heroes focused on punishment than stopping crime and helping people. Superman absolutely disagrees with this, as a lot of times their methods are too far and too extreme, and sometimes go even as far as killing criminals. A small retcon in this is that the Elite is going to be led by Steel, a man by the name of Jonathan Irons, who was an ex-police officer who uses a Luthor Corp suit and a giant metal hammer to enforce justice. He goes toe-to-toe with Superman as he believes that Superman doesn't do enough and doesn't help the little guy, as his family was murdered by a mugger 10 years ago. In this third and final film, I want to test Superman when he's at his lowest. I want to test how he does morally when Lex is throwing mind games at him the entire film while using the Elite and Steel. How does Superman react when he doesn't have the acceptance from Metropolis? How does he react when his small town Kansas values don't hold up in a world that's moving so fast? Is his kindness still relevant, or does the world want something else? Superman will look to his friends and his family and his wife, Lois, as he finds the inspiration to move on and keep on fighting the good fight. And in the third and final act, Lex Luthor takes one of Steel's suits and modifies it with kryptonite, arming himself with his own suit to take on Superman one-on-one, the final showdown. I really want this fight to feel like the boiling point of the entire trilogy. Lex feeling like he was betrayed by the only friend he ever considered a peer, and Superman feeling like he was manipulated from the first film. Not only is this a battle of fists, but ideology, as Lex argues that man is inherently bad, and Superman is arguing that man is inherently good. They move across Metropolis, Lex shooting kryptonite blasts at Superman, as Superman is beaten to a pulp. His only motivation is to prevent the bystanders from the destruction, and throwing himself in harm's way in order to prevent civilian casualties. Just as Lex is about to deliver the final blow, all these years of hard work coming to this, Superman on his knees as Lex beats him to the ground. The people of Metropolis move in. Out of the devastation, they stand in between Lex and Superman, saving Superman, Spider-Man 2 style, as Lex stands there furious at what is happening. Lex screams, "I'm trying to save you," and one of the civilians, an older woman, stands there bravely and says, "How many of us have to die for you to save us?" As Lex realizes he's lost and surrenders. Well, let us know in the comments if you like this kind of stuff, what you want to see further. We're happy to take suggestions. And yeah, see you next time.